finally starting to cool off, which means fall isn't far behind and our first frost will soon be approaching. And you know, Oklahoma, we never know when that will really show up. So it is time to start thinking about putting our garden to sleep for winter. And one of those tasks might include taking cuttings of your annuals. When we're really talking about true annuals, an annual is a plant that will be germinated from seed. It will grow roots, grow vegetation, flower, and produce a seed, and then die in one season. Now, a lot of our plants that we use here for landscaping purposes and annual color are tropical perennials, which means they actually are perennials down in warmer climates, such as our coleus. Coleus is one that we often refer to as an annual here, but it's actually hardy down in very southern parts of Texas. And so while it might be a perennial there, it is treated like an annual here, which means it's going to die as soon as that frost comes in. So the one beauty about annuals is that they provide us color all season long during our growing seasons. However, we have to plant them every spring. If you want to save your gardening pocketbook just a little bit, what you can do is take cuttings of your annuals this time of year so that you can overwinter and grow some of those plants to put back out into your garden next spring. And you can do this a couple of different ways. One of the main ways that we do on annuals is called stem cuttings, and that's what I'm going to show you today. And the reason why you would do stem cuttings not only is to save money, but also, of course, you could bring in your annuals, but a lot of them have gotten pretty large this time of year. And so to have to go and dig up your plants, they would probably suffer from that shock of just being uprooted, removing some of those roots, and then being transplanted or potted up and moved into a different condition. So by taking some stem cuttings, this is going to give you a better plant going into your home or into your greenhouse that you might have. So I've got some cuttings that I've taken, and when you take cuttings, what you're looking for is probably the upper growth primarily, because typically their healthier growth is at the top of the plant. It doesn't have as much possible contamination from the soil that might have splashed up. So you're going to get about 5 to 6 inches. You're going to kind of be aware of where the leaves actually connect. So, 5 to 6 inches here, you can see I have several leaf nodes versus a coleus. 5 to 6 inches, you can see I took a bigger cutting here so that I could get more of those nodes, which is where the leaf connects to the stem, because that's an important part when you're taking leaf cuttings. So we're going to look at some of the cuttings that I have here. Like I said, I got some catmint, which is a perennial. It tends to usually come back. We've got some kufia here, and you can see on the kufia I took some larger branches, and that's so I can take several different cuttings. You primarily want to take your cuttings early in the morning because that's when your plants are best hydrated. They haven't gone through the warmer temperatures of the day just yet, and so that is the prime time to take them. Now, I would say I tend to want to get cuttings that don't have a lot of flowers on them. Of course, annuals are known to produce a lot of flowers, and so that can be difficult. So you can see here on the kufias, I do have a lot of flowers. So what I'm going to do on this kufia is go ahead and cut again. The reason why I'm taking a second cutting, obviously it's too big, but when you're out harvesting your plants, as soon as you cut it, air is starting to go up the stem of this plant. So by taking a cutting again, I've got a fresh cut that hasn't captured as much air there. So what I'm going to do is take a cutting off of the top. I'm going to come down so that I at least have 2 or 3 leaf nodes. Now you can see these are pretty tight, so I'm going to come down to about here and just cut right below the leaf node. Now what I'm going to do is remove some of these lower leaves, and you can sometimes strip them with your hand, although that can be a little concerning because what happens sometimes is you actually can pull the tissue down the stem. So taking your snips and just removing some of those lower leaves is good to do. And I'll just do that up the stem there. So now we have our cutting actually prepared. Now the next thing you're going to need to do is get some rooting hormone, and I'm going to go ahead and slip on some gloves. And basically what this hormone is going to do is tell the plant it needs to grow some roots on those nodes. And so instead of dipping your plant straight into the bottle, again, you've got a plant here, you hope it's disease-free, but it might have contaminants on it. So you don't want to contaminate your rooting hormone. So what we're going to do is actually tap some of this into another little container here. And it doesn't take a whole lot because you're just going to kind of put it on its edge and coat it like this. So you can see I've dipped those lower nodes into that rooting hormone, okay? So now what we're gonna do is come over here with our pencil, and I've got some pre-moistened potting soil in some trays here, and I'm just gonna go ahead with my pencil and actually make some holes in each one of these cell packs. And the reason why I'm making holes instead of pushing the rooting hormone and the plant down in there is because as I was pushing that in, the rooting hormone would actually come off of the stem. So this way it can go in there, and then I can press the potting soil around that stem so the rooting hormone stays in good contact with that stem. So we've got our first cutting done, and we'll repeat that process. Now I'll show you on some of the other ones. Again, I've got periwinkles here. You can see I've taken a lower cutting, so I've got several there. So I can come along here and again take a cutting just below the node. I'll strip those lower leaves off. And you can see there's some old flowers because these annuals tend to just keep blooming as they grow up their stem. And again, if you get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't need that much stem, then go ahead and trim it even shorter if you want to. So I will just then coat that. And again, make my hole. So what I'm gonna do is do kind of 6-pack of each one of these. Now, if you have something bigger, like say the coleus leaves sometimes are bigger leaves, and so you think maybe it won't fit in a 6-pack. That's fine. What you can do is go ahead and trim it up. So we're going to take that much and remove that, and we're cutting down these lower leaves once again. And I'm even going to take off this leaf. You really don't need a whole lot of leaves to it. You could probably even take these leaves off. If you have larger leaves, what you can do is actually cut the leaves. That doesn't harm the plant at all if you're trying to just worry about space, because a lot of times when you have those bigger leaves, they will overlap one another. So go ahead and trim those down. I'm going to trim this down even further. The reason why you're wanting to cut just below the node is because, again, that's where the roots are going to initiate. If I was to cut down here, a lot of times you're going to have the roots grow here, and all of this is just going to kind of end up deteriorating, which can lead to rot of your cutting. So that's why we're going to go ahead and remove most of that and just leave the node towards the bottom. So again, we're going to put that into our rooting hormone. Now on something bigger, you can see I've cut the leaves down on this, but you can also do this in a bigger pot if you wanted to. So I'm just going to again put my hole in there and then kind of pat and make sure there's good contact with the potting soil around it. Now with any cuttings that you do, I'm going to continue to fill these up, but you want to make sure that they are going to start losing moisture immediately. So that's the important thing. You want to kind of work quickly, only take as many cuttings as you can actually do, and then go out and take a few more cuttings and then come back and get those in potting soils. So you want to make sure to maintain that humidity also. So that's really important in order to allow those roots to develop, because you got to remember you've removed this plant and you're asking it to do a lot by developing roots, but you've just removed all of its leaves practically. So you want to make sure to create a high humidity environment so that it doesn't have to lose a lot of that through photosynthesis or anything. You can simply get a baggie. And so I'm going to go ahead and label this and also put the date on here so that I remember when I did this. And it's October, and then also it is a coleus. So I'm going to label that right there. Now you'll notice that I have some paper towels in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some moisture on these paper towels. Again, this is creating a greenhouse effect. It's a cheap greenhouse, if you will, raising that humidity. And then I'm just going to place my cutting in there. So when you do this, you're going to seal it up. If you find that it's getting too hot, you can kind of leave it vented just a little bit. We're gonna place this in a kind of a brightly lit area, but not out in full sun, not in a west-facing sunny window, because it would actually get too hot in here. So you wanna create some warmth to it and some light to it, but not extreme heat. So this will create that greenhouse effect. You can check it every so often. It would be preferable to check it daily to make sure you're still seeing condensation. You should see moisture on the bag. If not, come back in here, open this up, and spray it again so that you keep that moisture up. You don't want to mess with your cuttings too much. I know it can be tempting to come in here and sort of wiggle them or pull them and tug on them to see if they're rooted, but really you're going to want to give them a few weeks to establish those roots. And they're going to establish the roots before you actually see growth. If you're starting to see growth, then you can kind of rest assured that there probably are roots that have already developed. So at this point, we're going to set that aside, like I said. And on these, if you wanted to do something like this, if you're taking a lot of cuttings, I'm going to go ahead and finish out these pots. But once I do that, then you can kind of put a little bit of water in the tray. Again, you don't want this necessarily saturated, but just high humidity. And we have something like this that we're going to put over the top of it that will help maintain that humidity. Again, you'll notice these are actually germination trays that we use in the springtime for our seeds, but they work well for cuttings as well. And they have vents, so again, we could allow some of that heat to escape if we wanted to. But these really are ideal for home garden situations, kind of bring into your house, allowing you to overwinter your annuals, saving your pocketbook a little bit of money next spring. We hope you enjoyed this video as part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on the OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.